Morning, everyone. I'm Anthony Qualcomm from Flow. I guess most of you have a little technical background, so because my presentation is going to be a little bit technical. Um, See Joe in here. He used to be my good external staff, one of them. And he left suddenly. Wasn't expecting that, but we were able to replace him. But we're still struggling in that area. Yeah. Um, the good thing about telecoms, right? This is my second tour at Cable and Wireless Flow, right? Hearing me now, right? Yeah. Yeah. So you're hearing me now, right? So this is my second stint at Cable and Wireless. And the good thing about telecoms, right? So when you're in telecoms or when you're in a job for so many years, you tend to get complacent. You tend to look at things one-sided. So I left for another company, Ericsson, and I worked there for 8, 9 years. And one of the experience I got was what you call disaster recovery. I was involved in disaster recovery in Bahamas, Dominica, I think was El Salvador, one of those Spanish countries. And one of the things that we tend to forget about recovery, disaster recovery, is the human factor, right? We had a kind of motto in Ericsson. When you have a hurricane, any kind of disaster, don't depend on the people who are affected on the island. So straight away, Ericsson, they will bring in people from, well, Ericsson is a bigger company than Flow, so in people from all over the world. And the people on island, they will concentrate on restoring the homes and so on and so on. Because I'll tell you, every one of us who had to work on this network after the hurricane, we had a problem. I couldn't report to work until like the next day, close to end of the day, the next day. Because my road was blocked, I didn't have power. Obviously, I had a generator, but you know, you have to get those things going and so on and so on. So one of the things that we tend to forget, we talk about all those nice things you hear Joe talking about, but if you don't have the human resources, you can't go anywhere, right? And one of the things that I will get to later on, one of the things that you have to make sure that you're able to do is have a plan. For instance, you in an island, right? You can't sleep in an island overnight. Same to with Kano and same to with Myro. So in order to do recovery, you have to go down in the morning. Look, I just sent down about 8 guys this morning. Because we're trying to restore the final site on Union Island. And you have to send down guys. Sometimes the plane don't leave until 12 o'clock. And you have so much issues when it comes to the human factor. And that is one of the things that we overlook. And that is one of the things that we should really focus on when we have a hurricane and a storm or whatsoever. But I'll just go through some of my presentation now. Right, so that was the impact on our network at a snapshot. 80% of our fixed internet was offline on the mainland, which would have impacted like 20,000 or so customers, subs. We had 100% disruption of fixed internet service to Beckway, Mustique, Canawan, Myro, and Union. So this translated to 68% of our mobile sites were offline, while 32 were active. 32% was active, which was 13 sites. So you see the immediate impact. So we had more than half of our network offline. And that was immediate. But what happened? Vinlec would have still been, your batteries and that kind of thing would have still been up. So within a day, you'll find that that number would have gone down to less than 50%. So maybe the hurricane strike on a Monday, and the Tuesday, we may have had like 45% of our network. You know? So it was terrible. The mainland had 44%, 18 sites offline. Grenadines had 100%, 10 sites offline. 2 sites in Beckway, 2 sites in Mustique, 2 sites in Canawan, 3 sites in Union, and 1 in Myro, right? That was the estimated damage at first. I think it's more than that now. Well, it's way more than that now. So also we had like infrastructure damage to the retail stores in Union and Canawan. And we had technical buildings. So in Canawan, we had our 2 technical buildings completely destroyed. In Union, we had 3 technical buildings. Those were destroyed. In Myro, same thing. So that was a snapshot at that time, right? So let me go forward. Recovery update. So basically, our plans that we had to use up some OPEX and CAPEX, but we were looking at 2 million, in excess of 2 million at that time, right? Because I want to give you an impact, the impact it had. That is now about 4 million, that doubled, because when we did this initial assessment, it was done in such a way that we weren't able to get to some of the islands at that time. Up to this day, we haven't gone to Palm Island as yet. Yeah? Because there were some people who told us just not to come. PSV just told us, we went to PSV like 2 weeks ago. And their whole eastern side, everything damaged. Luckily, our cell sites, our site there didn't really sustain any damage. So this just gives you the key areas that we had to focus on. New mobile towers. So when you think about a tower, 20-foot monopole, talking about 500,000 US right there. So that's why I said that wasn't correct at first. So basically we had, as I said, all 3 sites on Union, 1 on Myro, 2 on Canawan. We also had some sites down up on the mainland too. We had like Young Island, which is one of the main sites on the mainland. The tower fell, so we had to do some work here on the mainland also. Microwave backhaul, FTTH, these are the things we had to focus on going forward. Then our retail operations, well, retail on the mainland and Beckwith remains fully operational. Retail store in Union, well, we're trying to do something there, because what we normally do now is that we have to send staff down on a daily basis and get them back out same time. And we're looking at a new store in Canouan also. Fixed services restoration on the island of St. Vincent and Beckwith, close to one. Well, we can say we're fully restored in those islands. Canouan, we have to do FTTH there. We had to bring in some staff from, and one of the problems with bringing in staff is that you can only bring in staff from the Caribbean easily. But where you have the resources and the better, well, I don't want to knock our area, but where you have the most skilled staff, if I could put it that way, you're talking about Central America. So you're talking about El Salvador, Mexico, Nicaragua, those islands, those countries, those are the people that you can are available at a cheap price, but you have to pay taxes to the government and so on just to bring in one staff. So it's kind of expensive, but those are where the resources are. And this is something that we as a country really have to think about it, because right now we have a tower in Mustique to do, and the guys them who's going to come in to do it is from that part of the world. So it's something we have a lacking in, especially in telecoms. Yeah? So we brought staff in from Antigua. You notice? Antigua, St. Lucia, Trinidad in supporting us. Easy to bring in. Not much of a, I mean, they had to bring in their own vehicle and everything. So that's the other thing. We clean up activities in Canouan, Union, Myro. All those are still in progress. Building fixed new network in Southern Grenadines has started. So that was back then. We basically almost finished in Canouan. As of like Monday, we had Canouan mobile services fully restored. And I think the competitor is the same too. They have their mobile service fully restored. Restoration to premier customers in Canouan already started. So the banks, the credit union, the police and so on have fixed services back. Yeah? I'm not gonna really go through that, but Joan might be familiar with this. So we had like 6,000 tickets open. These are faults that would have come in via the help desk, person to person and so on. Right now we have about less than 200, so, you know, improving. Right, so so right now we have 8 out of 10 mobile sites in the Grenadines back online. So we have the 2 that are off still is in Union Island and Myro. So the guys went down this morning we should have that site online. By the end of this week, we should only have one site, Myro, off. And we're waiting for some power to get to that site because we don't have any on-island resources to do refueling. Because for instance, in Union, Um, two our sites are still on generators. That means refueling problems. We try to use some fuel from Vinlek. I know what, yeah. We try to use some fuel from Vinlek. Now just remember he's not with Vinlek anymore. No, we tried to use some fuel from Vinlek. The fuel ended up messing us up because it had water in it. So we have to send them fuel every week from up here. You know, it's kind of taxing. No, because I am responsible for Grenada, this is what I did. Grenada was able to restore quicker than us, right? Because I was responsible for that restoration also. So they were able to restore quicker in Carriacou and PM, Petit Martinique. So what we did was what I did really was to increase the power of the transmitters in Carriacou and PM. And that causes overlap coverage right up to Canawan. So although we didn't have service from us, St. Vincent, in Canawan, Mairo, and in Union Island, we were able to turn up the power and allow, but the only little thing is that you get a roaming, but we're fixing that. That is one of the problems we're going to fix. And you wouldn't be charged because once you complain, we will reduce the bill. Yeah, I have some guy right now in Vinlek who working in Union. As soon as they get bad, they call me and we get that sorted out. Yeah? So that is what we're doing. But that was a quick, you know, in a hurricane, you have to look at quick wins. Eh? For instance, you see all those sites in Union that we brought back? The building's still there. It's not restored. So you have to find ways of basically use, well, as I say, I'm responsible for the 3 islands. So I was able to get different equipment from the different islands and make these sites up. We had to make up cabinets and so on. And that's one of the things you have to really think on your feet and you say, look, we can do this to bring this site up temporary because the actual equipment that we ordered to replace all those sites haven't arrived as yet. Yeah? So you really have to really think. I mean, I know a lot of people hit us hard because, well, fixed services are very difficult and painstaking service to really bring back from scratch. Yeah? You gotta realize that poles down, you have to depend on Vinlek because the last mile especially is on poles. Most of our core network is on underground. There are some areas that was one of the lessons learned that we have to put underground because the government would have been building bridges and we have to put overhead and go back, that kind of thing. But one of the things that, as I said, human part of it, is that you really have to think seriously. So the first meeting I had with my guys, I said, yo, how we could bring back up Canawan? How we could bring back up Union? One guy came up and said, oh, we could build a cabinet, put an AC inside there, and we good. So we did that for 2 sites in Union, and we did that for a site in Canawan. So, you know. Now, what else? I think I cover all this. Mairo Island receiving mobile coverage from Union, temporary. We had some cow, but we never really used them because we had a good contractor, Rudy. You tell Rudy plant a pole to put back up the site, you get that quick. So by the time the cows came in, cellular on wheels. Sorry about that. Cellular on wheels. So by the time we got our cows, right, we had restored Union. I wonder if you invited anybody from Digicel? So Digicel is here? Okay. S- So we are better than Digicel in Union. Well, you hear that, but if I tell you, we have two sites up. Digicel have one site up with well, one site up with two sectors at the landing station. We have two sites, and the third one going to be up this week. Actually they want to come on our tower in Union, so there's a no, but we share tower, you know. They on like 4 of our towers, we probably on 1, but we share towers. We share generators too. That's the other thing that you have to call. Although there's a serious competition, right? When you think about the cost of doing things, you have to do that sharing. Yeah. So that's what we're doing. So I think I cover everything here. You and I are off, right? This is just the FTTH in Canaan, but I won't go through that. These are some of the things that we did to help our customers. Like we did rebates, we did credit. Any credit miss for customers will be addressed by retail stores. We did billing of Canaan was suspended. Canaan, Myro, and Union, we suspended those billing because although Grenada was getting coverage initially from us, from Canaan, Canaan was like the hub of Grenada, northern Grenada. After they came back up, because you see how far Canaan is, and you see how far PM and so on, they still got coverage from Canaan. And the good thing about Canaan, we had just installed a new tower, so that one didn't fall. And we did free mobile plan given to all prepaid customers. We did a free 5G of data, relief visit. We did some relief visit in Union Island. I myself was on one of those. And we had the person responsible for all the GMs in the region came and went on that one also. And update issues we did some updates through local media and so on. And I think Wayne used to come give you guys an update every so often about how many sites and so on and so on. So those were some of the things that we did. Right. Now, this is the thing. This is what we normally follow. This is just like a brief of what we normally follow during and after a storm. So after the all clear is given, first thing we do, staff count. Like for instance, we didn't hear anything from those people in Union. So that was a problem. But we eventually heard from all of them. Most of them was like, we are alive, but homeless. So I think we are paying for a couple of them from Union. They're still up here. Because remember now, when you have a storm, you don't allow the staff to be on island. You bring them up and you send different staff. Right? That's one of the objectives we always think about in a storm. You try and make your staff comfortable. Right? So those in Union are still up here. Those in Canaan are now going back. So that's one of the things we do. We value, and Joe will tell you that too, right? We value our staff. So, this is what we did. We even during the hurricane, the volcano, we did something like that. We had our staff at different apartments and so on. So, you engage your contractors, local, regional. You engage procurement. Procurement is who is going to get your stuff to the island, right? So those those are the actual, must do things. Must do things before we tackle restoring your service. Then, so for instance, at my home, we have like generators all over the islands. In the Grenadines, you'll be able to log on to your site. Actually, one of the things that we have been trying to do and doing for the last 2 years since I came back, right, is to automate and to use a lot of AIs to actually reduce the human factor. So the guys will be able to log in to the sites to see which sites are up and which sites are not down. We can start the generators remotely. We can look at the generators remotely, see what is the fuel levels and so on, so that we can actually send guys to the refueling. Refueling is the worst thing in a hurricane. The guys hate that. So one of the things that that was one of the problems with our recovery too, is that some of the generators had just day tanks, and the guys would have had to be refueling those every day. So we bought just start arriving. We bought about 14 new generators, and all of them will be fitted with bulk tanks that could hold up to about 300 gallons, which will kind of hold you for a couple of days. Yeah? So we look for quick wins. And as I said, one of the things that one of the guys came up with, we have a MacGyver on our team. He came up with this, building these cabinets and able to deploy service very easy. And also using our contractor, Rudy's, to deploy some poles for us. Focus on your priority customers. Look for quick wins, focus on your priority customers. So you guys know who might be priority customers in the scheme of things. Like for instance, Mustique is, the 20/80 rule, where you get 80% of your revenue from 20% of your customers, right? So, for instance, Mustique, obviously, they have fiber to the home in Mustique for probably when you were there, right, Joan? Mustique had fiber to the home probably when you were there. You were involved in that, right? Right. So they have fiber to the home. And then we have the subsea from Digicel, right? So they were one of the first to be restored because of the subsea, and because there's a tower down there that I kind of expected would have fall, but it didn't. But I was happy for that. And so we were able to restore those priority customers. You're talking about like the Prime Minister, resident, government, those kind of. NEMO, obviously, would be one of our first restoration objective. So I heard some of your pain. Yeah. But was that that service we provided recently there, with the radios, wasn't that up? It was up? Yeah. Because that one is coming off Mount St. Andrew, right? So these are the things we do. We focus on priority customers. We do assessment to document the state of our network. Execute on the outcome of the assessment. One of the things, though, is that Canon One was promised. We had the equipment to do the fiber to the home before burial. So that one was a no-brainer, because obviously all the poles were destroyed. So, this was our lessons learned. The availability of resources to come to St. Vincent. One of the things that we were able to do, and I think this kind of helped jumpstart our recovery, we had a staff who had experience with Digicel and Flow, well, Cable and Wireless before. And during this time, he called me and said, you know, he's available. So we were able to get him to come in, and we were able to restore this. He had helped us and still helping us in the restoration. Now, you see that second point? And it kind of, I'm seeing it glaringly in my eyes. Because all the equipment that we ordered, like towers, antennas, equipment that blew away, we haven't arrived here as yet. So we had to really reuse back some of the equipment that fell. Yeah? So that's one of the things. And obviously use up all your spares, but you don't have space to recover any network with that kind of damages that we had. Hurricane inventory not immediately available as indicated. Well, there were some issues with the inventory that we were either some were supposed to store in Miami, some were supposed to store on island. You know, well, you'll always have those little issues. Resilience and alternate power source across the network. And this is one of the things that we're going to continue to work on. This kind of is still affecting our HFC network. Obviously, if inlet goes, we have battery backup, but we really have to come up with a solution to that. And we're looking at that. Maybe fiber to the home is a solution, but it doesn't seem so when you look at, we have fiber to the home in BVI, Cayman, and they still had similar issues like what we had. And I guess the other provider, Digicel, would have had similar issues with the last mile. And maybe NTRC could tell us that, because they would have known the complaints from the customers. But power source, which include generator, obviously ability to monitor and actually manage, turn on those generator remotely. You can know exactly what is the problem with the generator remotely. Obviously, high capacity tanks, that goes a long way. And fiber on the poles is really nah. Luckily, right, because of Cable and Wireless, we had a lot of underground ducts. So I think we have to, because remember the HFC network was acquired from Carib Cable, right? And well, I think they acquire maybe not a real good network anyway, but we are working on that, right? But remember, in a storm, the first network you restore, and the first network that is easier to restore is mobile. Because you put up a mobile site, you serve a lot of customers. With fixed, it's labor intensive. Labor intensive, that's the problem with fixed line. Yeah? So much so that in Grenada, what we did, we're now restoring the fixed network using fiber to the home. We are restoring it using a company called Terrana, which is a wireless fix. And we have so far in Grenada, we have about over 30 customers on it. We are planning to use it for Myro. Might be just easier to put one device on that tower and you know, because the fixed network, I know a lot of people depend on it, but it's a labor intensive, it's full of faults, you know, anything that is, you have to actually run a wire directly to the customer is a problem. But, as I say, what we're doing, we are making the network more, trying to make the network more resilient. So we are trying to put stuff underground. So as we put stuff underground, it will become more reliable. We are looking at, well, we're not using, these days, we used to use some big, you know those battery, lead acid. Well, they're gone. Then gel. Gel, good batteries, but we're now changing from that to lithium batteries. Yeah? Lithium batteries, and then we have the issues with people stealing the batteries. Yeah? So when you have a site, a cell site, you have to have cameras to make sure. But the lithium batteries have a built-in, we call a built-in GPS. So if you steal it, you're going to get tracked. And it's not a 12-volt battery. It's a 48-volt battery. So I don't think the persons who stealing those batteries, I don't think they use it for 48 volts. I think it's for 12 volts. So that's the thing we're doing also. We have about 15 sites now on lithium batteries right now. So it's been going very good. Probably you guys need to do that too for your backup, because I know they stole your battery several times, right? Yeah. So that's one of the things. It's more expensive. It's like 3 times the price of the normal normal gel batteries, but obviously you get the added advantage of being able to monitor it and so on and so on. Walk-in Jensen need to be, yeah, that's, well, we had some, to be honest with you, we had some old generators in the network. And since I came back, I've been ponging them about getting them changed out. But we have been changing out some of them. So it's good, I mean, it's good and bad that the storm came, because we were able to get about 15 or 14 generators to replace those old ones. So newer network, that's it. That's the thing about a storm, or hurricane. It's expensive to restore, but you get a new network, you know? And that's one of the good things. Okay, so we talk about the capacity of the generator, fuel tanks. Poor design in building construction. We suffered from that. For instance, the building in Jerome, you know, down to the fencing wall, went flat. There was the building obviously went to. Luckily in Ashton, you know these days when you build in a bunker, so you build the concrete, you put the thermal thing on it, which they claim should work for 20 years, it doesn't. It works for about eight years. Because we had to do that in Kingston, we had to do that in Annisville. And what we eventually had to do was to build a galvanized roof over all that. So you have a concrete under that, the thermal stuff, and then the galvanized. So we did that for Ashton. But guess what? The roof blew off. So these are, and I would have think that when I built my house about 17, 18 years ago, I think Grenada just had the hurricane. And the building code had changed on me. So the initial quotation I had gotten from the contractor, I had to add like another close to 40,000 just to do the roof to make it hurricane. But it seems as though some of the things if you look at some of the damages in Union, some of those same procedures that they asked us to put in place, I saw them in place, but the roof still went. So it is something that we really have to look at carefully, those building codes. The other thing too, right? Those cell sites that had external cabinets, they didn't go, but like the tower went, right? One of the things that we could look at is moving some from the buildings out to the external cabinet. But that brings up another thing with the volcano. Because when we had the volcano, if the generator was outside, that was a problem. Because the generator couldn't breathe properly, and yeah. So you have to really stick a balance between them. I was with Ericsson that time. There was a drive to move some of them cabinets outside, and I said to them, don't move any in the volcano region, because I came from the volcano region. I'm from the volcano region, so I know what happens. They kind of listened to me, and luckily, because I know Richie was telling me the site down at Dunleavor down there, that didn't go off during the volcano. So it shows that, you know, I think the solution to this thing, especially in St. Vincent, is the building. The building. And I think our formula with concrete roof, thermal, galvanized. The galvanized is to help cool the building because, you know, the cost of electricity. The next thing we are looking at is to do solar at some of these sites. Yeah? I don't have it here, but that's one of the things that we're looking at. Especially Annisville, but I don't know how Vinlec, I think we had some discussion before with Vinlec about doing solar at Annisville. I think they wasn't too receptive because I guess they were there. You know how much we pay Vinlec every month just for Annisville. So I think they're looking at that because they get a good set of money from Annisville, because Annisville, you have all the batteries, it's like a bunker and so on. But anyway, that is one of the things. The solar, the wind, we tried the wind before, but the wind is not constant enough. So the cost of maintaining a wind turbine for those sites were high. Like for instance, we had a wind turbine at Mount St. Andrew. So what happens? Because the wind is gusting, anytime the wind gusts, the wind blades have to go in a feather position so that they wouldn't spin, because the wind turbine can't deal with the gusts. So you see that feathering and going forward, it used to break the shafts and so on. So we discontinue that. But wind, I think, is a solution for a smaller area, but not for, maybe for one of our small sites. Because appreciate, one of our small sites, the electricity bill is over $5,000 a month. So if you could get that down in half, it would be even better for us. And well, true. No, but we've been passing it on already. So one of the things, so I said that already, we need to make sure, this is something that the NTRC maybe could reinforce with the providers when you have meetings with both providers. I know Digicel, us, we have most of our network underground. Radio is a problem. So I'll give you a story. We just repaired a tower in Carriacou, Mount Royal. It's one of these four-legged towers like you see at Belmont, big towers. You think about big towers, they have big areas the wind could hold on and shake, right? So we just repaired that tower for like, because it's an old tower, you're almost building the tower again. So it's like 500,000 to repair that tower, the metal and so on. Guess what? The tower fell. The reason why the tower fell is not because of the tower integrity, but the amount of antennas you have to put on the tower. Remember, the formula is everybody want to be able to stream and all that. You know what Kelly told me? When I met him when he was about to sell his company, he said, Balo, everybody want high D, HD. They want high bandwidth. But I can't compete with you guys because you have to buy. Remember, you have to buy this capacity going out of St. Vincent, and it's expensive. So he said, you know what I did? I decided to just fiber Barbados, and I know I would have get buyout. So that's what he did. But the thing about the radio, so the higher the bandwidth, the bigger the antenna. So we were just designing and what we discover is that the 4-leg towers are not as strong as the 3-leg towers because of aerodynamics. Those who study physics might understand it better. Triangle, isosceles triangle. Right. So the 3-leg tower apparently is stronger. So we were trying to, well, tower already ordered, but we were ordering the tower, and this guy say, oh, you know what, Balcom? This transmission guy came to me and said, we're using, let's say, 9 gigs between Grenada and Carriacou. We want a tower, a dish that can do that. I said, no. You can't put those big dishes again on those towers because they're going to fall. You have to put a small dish. And sorry to say, but anytime you're going to be, anytime we're restoring like back to radios, we're only catering for like mobile services. We're not catering for like fixed line and so. That's the paradigm now. Because it doesn't make sense you put all those big antennas on these microwave between St. Vincent, the Grenadines, and they're going to fall. Luckily, how many towers fell for us? Well, there's a pole in Clifton. Well, that tower in Myra expected that to fall. So, 2 towers. The real towers did not fall because I had already started a program where I was taking the big antennas off the towers because of the subsea. So that is the key thing, one of our lessons. Don't put any big antennas on a tower. That tower in Grenada cost us so much. We just finished paying a couple of months and the tower fell. So these are some of the hard things that we have to think about. And I think that's it from me though, yeah. This is some pictures of, these are the cow, these are some of the buildings that fell. See, all these are the fencing. Some of the antennas, if you see how they get wrapped up, notice that? Wait, your stuff fell off the tower too, eh? Yeah. Is that tower in Myro? That, as I said, that would have been easily fell. Yes, that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and I don't think that anyone have any questions, right?
Yeah, thank you very much, Anthony. That was an excellent presentation. All of them were excellent. But in order to take advantage of this valuable resource that is available at the moment, we'd make a minor adjustment to the program. At this time, we would take a 15-minute break. So we'll be back here by 11:25. And at that time, we would do the question and answer segment. So hold your questions, and we would ask Nemo and Flo to be available to help us in answering the questions. You may have ideas as well. We appreciate that. We need everyone's input. And so we have our break at this time and be back at 11:25.